Religious tolerance is something we should all practice. However, there have been more persecution and atrocities committed in the name of religion and religious freedom than anything else. Tolerance is the acceptance of ideas and beliefs that one does not necessarily agree with. In today's world, many individuals show religious tolerance by respecting all religions, even though they do not practice them. On the other hand, others practice religious intolerance by discriminating against religions that they are uneducated or misinformed about. However, tolerance is not always a positive attitude to have when it involves overlooking immoral practices and ideas. As evidenced by historical and modern day occurrences, religious tolerance promotes social unity and stability. However, tolerating all aspects of religion may facilitate dangerous and extreme religious practices that are detrimental to human rights. Religious tolerance can stimulate the unification of a society. As one can observe in different organizations, such as the government, a lack of harmony among individuals opens up a doorway to conflict, uprisings, and overall discontent. As religious tolerance continues to prosper, apprehensiveness, fear, and suspicion within a community decreases. For example, in the Crucible, the townspeople of Salem unnecessarily experienced a period of mass hysteria caused by religious intolerance. The Puritans that make up the town were extremely religious and chastised anyone who they thought might oppose their doctrine. This allowed for Abigail, Betty, and the others to falsely accuse and blame people for being witches. The accusers were believed for the most part, and the witches were hanged because the Puritans associated them with the devil, and the devil had no place in their society. Furthermore, people who didn't attend church regularly were suspected of being witches. If the Puritans were more tolerant of each other, the witch trials most likely would not have happened, and countless lives would have been saved. According to Pastor David, you cannot force people in or out of religion without resulting in fear or tension.
Um, you don't force people into religion. Salvation is by choice, not by force. It's not for any man to convert people. That's why you see a lot of religious uprising in most countries. Most terrorists trying to convert people from the religion or they kill them. That is not part of Christianity. It should never be. You should not force anybody to go to church if they don't want to go to church. You don't force people to convert and change religion.
By forcing settlers to confess their sins or die, the Puritans were integrating mass hysteria into their society. Tolerance also would have meant that people who didn't go to church or broke the rules of Puritanism wouldn't have been feared or associated with the devil. Therefore, it can be said that the absence of religious tolerance and the unwillingness to accept the views of other people can lead to unnecessary and avoidable division in a society. The idea of religious tolerance can also be exemplified by some occurrences in our country today. The foundation of the United States is based on the arrival of foreign peoples trying to escape religious persecution due to the disapproval of their religions. People living within societies that promote tolerance are able to freely practice their religions without the fear of being rejected. As said in the Constitution, Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion or prohibiting the free exercise thereof. This amendment allows for individuals in the country to freely practice their beliefs with little interference from the government. Thus, the religious tolerance of the federal government attempts to encourage people, societies, and local and state governments to accept each other's different religious backgrounds. This, in turn, makes it easier to accept more variances, such as cultural, racial, sexual, and socio-economic differences. Only when we are able to not judge others based on their culture, beliefs, and values will our society be able to transition to one of impartiality and equality. The practice of religious intolerance has become a defining element in the lives of many, and as a result, it has also affected societies on a more global scale. The non-acceptance of contradicting viewpoints has led to conflict between religious nations, such as the Crusades. As the first of the Crusades occurred, Christians went into battle against Muslims with the goal of taking over Jerusalem. People with Jewish, Islamic, and Christian backgrounds were all massacred because of a deep hatred for their beliefs. Jews and Muslims were forced to convert to Christianity, which caused them to foster animosity towards the Christian authorities. A society full of hate is one that is divided, and just like Jerusalem during the Crusades, it will never succeed and prosper in the way it wants to. When there is religious intolerance, tension increases among the individuals of a society. Peoples whose needs are not met may rebel against the government until they achieve their goals. For example, during Aurangzeb's reign of the Mughal Empire, Hinduism was explicitly suppressed by the government. Aurangzeb ordered Hindu temples to be destroyed and then replaced them with Muslim mosques. This act of intolerance led to disdain among the Hindu and Muslim members of society. Tensions among the people of a community eventually leads to corruption within the government due to their thirst for power but lack of control over continuous religious conflicts. Societies rely on government control to regulate economic, social, and political reforms. Without it, these aspects of society become inefficient. Religious intolerance within a government often leads to a chain reaction of violence towards targeted religions. For example, the current president of the United States, Trump, issued a travel ban against 7 Muslim-majority countries. Only after his policy implementation, a Muslim mosque in Victoria, Texas, was set on fire. Trump's practice of religious intolerance instigated violence towards Muslims. Violence among the members of different religious communities causes long-term disdain to come between them. In order to escape persecution and violence, many targeted religions have moved their communities underground. In China, Christians have moved their practice away from public institutions to private homes. This was a result of China's declaration as an official atheist country, meaning the Chinese government controls churches and appoints the priests. Secrecy prevents religious communities from sharing their culture and beliefs with other people. Culture is one of the main aspects of stability in a community. When people are accepting of one another's culture, they are more inclined to work together and strengthen their community. Despite the word tolerance having a positive connotation and seemingly promoting social unity, tolerating everyone and everything isn't always a good thing, especially when dealing with religion. True religious tolerance means that one would have to allow for others to think, speak, act, and live in accordance with their religious beliefs, even if those beliefs seem unethical or unprincipled. Many religions allow for their practitioners to engage in activities that others may deem questionable. For example, the Bible, the Quran, and other holy texts teach against homosexuality. If one is tolerant of this aspect of these religions, they would essentially be condoning intolerance towards people. This type of intolerance against homosexual individuals usually turns into prejudice or even hatred towards them. The Bible and the Quran also contain misogynistic teachings, with both expressing the idea that women need to be submissive to men in order to satisfy their relationships with their partner and with God. Although practitioners of these religions may not be opposed to this idea, for the rest of society, to tolerate those who share these misogynistic views means to disregard the individuality and the rights of women to their own being. Therefore, being completely tolerant of all aspects of each religion means that one would have to turn a blind eye to unfairness and inequity these religions may teach. As a result, intolerance towards certain religious beliefs is needed in our society in order to limit the oppression of certain groups of people that individuals use their religion to justify. Complete religious tolerance not only results in the emotional maltreatment of individuals within our society, but it can also lead to the physical harm or even death of others. Let's take, for example, the Pentecostal couple named Herbert and Catherine Scheibel, who were members of the First Church of Christ. In 2009, their 2-year-old son died of pneumonia, and 4 years later, in 2013, a second son, who was only 8 months old, died after suffering from diarrhea and respiratory complications. These children unnecessarily died after their parents refused medical help because they believed in divine healing, and the Christian religion taught that prayers and one's belief in God would heal any sickness that a person suffered from. The Scheibels were eventually convicted of involuntary manslaughter after the death of their second son, and they were handed prison sentences. This occurrence, which is certainly not an isolated one, exemplifies the need to practice intolerance towards certain religious practices. From the moment the authorities were aware that this couple was depriving their children of what would have been life-saving medical attention, measures should have been taken in order to ensure that the children wouldn't die. Instead, those who had the power to take action chose to tolerate this couple and their religious beliefs. Had the authorities been more intolerant towards this couple and other parents whose children have died because of religious extremism, the affected children would have probably been alive today. All things taken into consideration, the concept of religious tolerance is not black and white. Religious tolerance, both in America and around the world, has helped to create a unified and stable society. However, complete acceptance of all religious practices can be socially and physically damaging to human lives. Accordingly, in order to prevent injustice, religious tolerance should definitely be practiced, but in moderation.